All right, Monica, thanks so much for doing this. My first question that I have for you is tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started with your organization that you recently opened.
Okay, so I'm Monica Alexander. I am a retired state trooper. I retired as a captain from the Washington State Patrol in 2019. I was hired here in 2019, in September of 2019, and I became the Advanced Training Division Manager and was promoted to Deputy Director and eventually was hired as the Executive Director. That was in June of 2021. And so I've been here ever since, and it is a great place. Now, I wish I could take credit for opening the Criminal Justice Training Commission itself. I cannot. That was opened back in 1974, and now we have opened up regional academies. So that is our newest adventure, is opening up regional academies. We opened the first one in Pasco. And then we opened, and that was in 2023. And then in January of 2024, we opened Vancouver. And then just recently in March of this year, we opened Arlington. So we now have a total, and we have one in Spokane that existed prior. So now we have a total of 5 academies so that people can attend training and also go home. So that's how I came to this place, and I absolutely love it. We have an amazing team. When I first took over here, we had 50 employees. We're up to about 150 employees now in a very short amount of time. So the growth here has been quite significant.
Hmm. And wasn't there like a ribbon cutting ceremony that you guys had?
Yes, we do the ribbon cutting ceremonies at all of them. So at Pasco, Arlington, and Vancouver, we had cutting ceremonies with the governor. So we had Governor Inslee did the one in Pasco as well as in Vancouver, and then we just did the ribbon cutting ceremony with Governor Ferguson in Arlington.
Hmm. So tell me a little bit about what you guys do at what you guys do generally.
So we train every police officer in the state of Washington, the basic training. And I emphasize basic because officers are always training. There's advanced training, and we do some of the advanced training here as well. We do leadership training. We train, and most people don't know this, is that people from everything from animal control to coroners and medical examiners train at the Criminal Justice Training Commission. But our main focus is the Basic Law Enforcement Academy. Last year, we trained over 844 new police officers, which is a really significant number because, a lot of the times what you hear outside of my walls is no one wants to be a police officer anymore. And I beg to differ. We have a lot of people that want to be police officers. About, I would say, a year or so ago, we had a wait time from 8 to 10 months. We no longer have that wait time anymore. It's 30 to 45 days to get into the academy. And that is largely in part because of our regional academies. And I'm so grateful for the legislature and the um, governor who has funded our regional academies because it has taken the weight out of waiting to become a police officer.
Hmm. So I'm wondering what goes into sort of what you guys do at the academy to sort of help train officers to sort of handle certain situations, or how you guys go about doing that in general. How are you guys at the academy different from like other police institutions, if 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 I may if I may ask?
So the state has certain requirements for us, what we have to do at the basic level. And we have to do a certain number of firearms, driving. We train on traffic stops. But like I said before, the training doesn't stop here. It is just giving everybody that baseline of training. And so when you say other institutions, I think, oh, we also teach in CIT, and CIT is crisis intervention training. So trying to teach our officers how to work with people that have some mental health challenges or a mental health crisis, because we have a lot of that happens. And so we want our officers to be well equipped with how to handle that. But also we're trying to teach officers how to handle their own mental health, because officers see things that your average person doesn't see. And we're all just human beings, and that can wear on them after a while. And so we want to make sure that our officers know how to take care of themselves. It's no different than when you're on the airplane and they say, make sure you put on your mask before you help someone else. And so we have to teach our officers how to take care of themselves so that they can continue to help others. But everything that we do here is the baseline of training so that our officers, and police officers and sheriff's deputies can go out, continue to learn, and serve their communities.
Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, I always have this question on my mind, like, because especially in this particular context, how do you sort of establish trust between a police officer and the community? Because oftentimes, we're in a very sort of um politically divided world and people have opinions. But let me give you an example of in this context. Let's say someone maybe doesn't trust a police officer, so for for whatever reason, how do you sort of say police officers actually can help the community? They can be trusted.
I think trust is earned. And I always talk to our recruits about how we earn the trust of our community. And we can only do that if we're working well with the community. And we have to get out and be available so that people can get to know us. And a lot of times when I'm talking to recruits or police officers, they go, we're just people too. We're just human beings. We're part of the community. And I always ask them, are you? How are you a part of the community? How are you interacting with the people? When you see someone, I mean, I think some of the best times to get to know the public is when nothing is going on. Meaning when you just see someone, maybe you're somewhere for lunch and you just greet people. People, as when I was wore a uniform for work, I would notice people looking, and they're looking at what's all on your gun belt and what's on your shirt. We have all this stuff. And so I would start a conversation with people and just say hello, introduce myself. And people would start talking then. But a lot of times people aren't just going to walk up and approach a police officer and say, hey, what's on your belt? Or what's that badge mean? Or what does that pin mean on your shirt? And so I think that we have to have just normal conversations like we would with anybody else, because our community they're just people. They're people that want to know, what we do and how we do it. And we have to be open to that. We have to be open to talking to people when there's nothing wrong, when everything is going right, when it's a perfect day outside, like it has been for the last several days. It's sunny, it's beautiful, you're just out and about, and someone waves at you. Start the conversation with them. That's the only way we're going to earn the trust of our community, is when we're talking to them when there's nothing wrong.
Hmm. My next question is, what have you learned as executive director for your particular commission? What is in your time as executive director?
I've learned so much. I used to always say I was on the other side of law enforcement, where I was actually doing the law enforcement type of work. Now on the training side of it, I see it through a very different lens, where my focus is how do I provide training that's going to keep the police and the community safe? How do I do that? What is the best training? How do we change some of what we're doing? And we're learning all the time. We see incidents happen, not necessarily in Washington, sometimes in Washington, sometimes in other states. And we have to talk through them and go, how could that have been done differently? And that doesn't mean I'm criticizing the officer or criticizing the person, because in those emergencies, we don't know how we would respond. But I want to use their situation to train our officers. Um, I learned, I continue to learn how important it is to listen to two very different sides of a conversation. So between the police I talk a lot to the chiefs and sheriffs, and I talk a lot to the community, and they both have the same goal in mind with different ways of getting there. And how do I meet them in the middle? And so I have learned a lot sitting in this seat.
Hmm. Tell me a little bit about the impact that this particular commission has on the greater community. What have people said?
Um, I mean, people have said everything from, and I'll be completely frank with you. When I first sat down in this seat, I honestly, and when I say first, it was before I was even the permanent executive director. I was the interim. Um, I got yelled at by some of our chiefs and sheriffs regarding our curriculum. They didn't think that it was a good curriculum. They didn't think that we were training their officers, and they're required by law to send their officers to this academy. And that really concerned me that that was how they felt. And so myself and the deputy director started really looking at our curriculum to see how we could improve it and talking to people. How do we improve this curriculum? Because I didn't want our law enforcement to feel that way. I didn't want our chiefs and sheriffs to feel that way. And so we started looking at the curriculum and realized we needed to revamp the curriculum. So we're still in the process of doing that, getting it certified anyway, because we've rewritten it and we're making some more changes to it. But the person that talked to me about this, they weren't wrong. We had a lot of work to do because things have changed, but the curriculum hadn't. And so that has been something that was a kind of a communication thing that needed to happen, where I needed to listen, because that is a part of communicating. People forget that. I needed to listen and hear what the complaints were and then take some action. And we did that. The On the community side, you know, about, gosh, I think it was in 2019 where the certification law was passed. And it may have been 2020, but the certification law was passed that changed how we looked at certification of an officer. A police officer in the state of Washington cannot be a police officer if they aren't certified. So the CJTC certifies them, and then the agency commissions them. And so ever since, certification came around, we've had more and more meetings with community. And community wants to know what we're doing. How are we doing it? So on our website, you can go on and look at people that their certification has been taken away and a very short summary of why. And so, we're trying to be transparent so our community knows what we're doing. I want people to understand what the mission of this agency is and that we're not a secret society. We are transparent and we are here to serve the public and the police.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, how does this commission help sort of um like what can people take away from this conversation? How can this sort of commission really 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 sort of really help the community look to as someone that they can depend on and sort of I don't want to say build trust, but look to if problems arise or whatever the case may be.
Well, so we have a certain amount of jurisdiction that we hold, and an officer has to commit a certain level of misconduct for us to take a case. So I would say that if, it's an excessive use of force, violation of the law, different things that can be brought to our attention and we can look at and investigate and look at a person's certification. Now, there's certain things that people want us to handle that aren't within our jurisdiction. A police officer was rude to someone. That's something that their agency should handle. And I encourage people, if they feel like they were wronged by an officer, they should, communicate with that agency and give the agency an opportunity to make it right. You know what they say, if someone has a good experience, they tell 10 people. If someone has a bad experience, they tell 10,000 people. And so I think it's important that we give agencies an opportunity to make things right. And that conversation can give people a positive view of how the police handles problems and how they work with their community. But if you never give them the chance, you'll never, ever give them that opportunity to make whatever was wrong for you right.
Mm-hmm. All righty.